Thanks so much. Again, this is Jessica Sims. I'm the Virginia Field Coordinator with Appalachian Voices. I'm very excited to be on a team with the folks you're going to hear from tonight. Ridge Graham, who's our North Carolina Field Coordinator. We get to work in collaboration on a lot of projects. Angie Muma, who is the Middle Tennessee organizer, and is going to tell you about the great work going on in that state. Next slide. We have a special guest speaker this evening, Russell Chisholm, who's the coordinator for Mountain Valley Watch and is the co-chair for the Power Coalition and has been deeply involved in the fight against Mountain Valley Pipeline and Mountain Valley Pipeline Southgate for a number of years. So very excited to hear about the ways you can connect with Mountain Valley Watch, get involved, become part of the monitoring efforts for the project, and to move forward with helping the communities who've been leading the fight against this unnecessary project. Next slide. So just a little bit about the who, the what, and the how of Appalachian Voices. I know some of y'all are quite familiar with the type of work we do, and we're so appreciative to have the chance to work with y'all on this. But the team you're hearing from tonight, and so all year long, we've been having 25th anniversary specials or events. And so all the different teams have had a chance to talk about what their work looks like. So for the team represented here tonight, and some of us are not able to attend, unfortunately. So our thanks to Peter Anderson, our policy director, who does tremendous work in this space, and Bree Kinsley and Gabby Lichtenstein that are also part of the Tennessee team, and you'll hear more about that work soon too. We're in Virginia, North Carolina, and Tennessee, and we're working in solidarity with communities that are fighting fossil fuel infrastructure all across Appalachia, not only necessarily limited to Appalachia, but that's where our primary focus is. This is achieved by multiple sort of facets of our job that we have the privilege to do: grassroots organizing, engagement with legislators, participating in regulatory spaces. I know many of y'all are familiar with comment periods, and really trying to get to the policies that could have an impact going forward. We also have participation in legal cases related to fossil fuel projects. And with that, either as a party to a case, or sometimes as an intervener in different proceedings in the federal space and the state space. So trying to have our eyes and our support and participation in as many spaces as possible to help fight the threat of new fossil fuel infrastructure. This is achieved because of y'all and the communities that give us the chance to work with them, to support them, that allow us to help build that trust that makes the community organizing work of Appalachian Voices possible. So that's direct relationship building with communities, time learning from y'all, and learning how to best serve the community, providing educational outreach and training for those learning about issues, using that grassroots power to influence decision makers and bring larger local, regional, and national attention to projects. And I'll note too, the chat is enabled, and hopefully folks are able to chime in. So again, if you want to put your name, where you're coming from tonight, and what makes Appalachia special to you, we'd love to hear from you. Next slide. Okay, so primary focus of the Virginia and North Carolina teams has been the now canceled Atlantic Coast Pipeline, which you see represented in the kind of fuchsia color there. And then the Mountain Valley Pipeline represented with the red line that you see there. This is not reflective of the proposed Southgate extension, but both, if you're completely new to if you're just learning about this team at AppVoices and you haven't heard us talking about pipelines before, these were two fracked gas pipelines proposed in 2014 that were 42-inch in diameter, huge, routed through mountainous areas, routed through communities of color, low-income, elderly communities, and incredibly poorly planned. The fuchsia one, the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, was a project of the monopoly utility provider here in Virginia, Dominion Energy, a partnership with Duke, and was meant to, as you see there, eventually make its way all the way through North Carolina, and their intention was to bring it to South Carolina. So 2 giant fracked gas pipelines proposed at the same time. And I want to share with you part of what our work is, and the gift of doing this work is learning the stories of everyone who's been impacted and who's fighting this, and what it means to them to push back against things that would harm their environment or harm their neighbors and their families and their livelihoods and their legacies. And so with Atlantic Coast Pipeline, we had the chance to work with lots of county groups along the route, the Abra Alliance, our wonderful partners at Artivism Virginia that we're about to see a video from. Lots of different ways to fight all of these projects too, from making phone calls to writing letters to going to hearings to going to protests, to monitoring, educational outreach. Anything under the sun was helpful, and it was that collective effort of Black and Indigenous leaders, community members, advocates, and allies that helped keep the pressure on Dominion and Duke and get the Atlantic Coast Pipeline canceled. So I want to go to the next item, which is a video that documents a moment in time that really showcases so beautifully the work of Artivism Virginia, and the storytelling that goes with this, and how important it is to have cross collaboration between fights.
If the powers that be say, I need that, if I gotta burn it, take it, and kill you in the process, so be it. I will get what I want because I can. I'm gonna destroy everything you have to get rich, because when I die, it doesn't even matter what I leave behind. I am Bernadette Brown, known to most as BJ, and I'll be traveling to Richmond, Virginia, to march with the people of Union Hill, stand against the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. Just from what I've experienced, the MVP pipeline has been an in-your-face degradation of the people. It's been a blatant sign that all of us don't hold the same value. I recognized a particular group of people, the African American historic community. I just want to go stand with them and, be a support for their community. I can't comprehend why something King had to march for decades ago, here we are in 2019, still marching, crossing the same bridge they walked over for the same injustices. When I raise my voice, I know that I am taking a chance that I will lose something. If I take wise counsel, they would advise me, you need to stay home, mother your children, do what you can do to kind of stay under the radar and get through life. I believe that's the reason things are like it is. It's all or none. And until we actually come together in unity, I don't know what it's going to take to break these powers that feel that they run things. Everything I need, I've been gifted. Air, water, everything that's essential to me staying alive was not made by the hands of any man, in my belief. It was gifted by the Creator. We will win. Because here's the thing. If we lose, there won't be anyone here to win.
Thanks so much, Jamie, for playing that. And so that tells part of the story, the beautiful story of how everyone worked together to highlight the environmental injustice of the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, and to elevate and spotlight the work of all the communities that were leading such fervent fights for each other, for their neighbors. We have a couple of the ways folks participated, and some of those moments captured here from the Virginia side, where we saw Reverend Dr. Barber and former Vice President Al Gore come to Buckingham County in 2019, the March Against the ACP, which was featured in the video. And the other ways folks participated in the process, including going to all of the hearings related to the project. So those are some of the ways Appalachian Voices was able to help participate and support elevating this issue and bringing people together and working with them to help bring an end to the ruinous Atlantic Coast Pipeline. Ridge is going to share a little bit in the next slide about what happened down in North Carolina.
Thanks, Jess. And just kind of wanted to zoom out a little bit. When we were looking at the map of the pipelines a couple slides ago, just with the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, this was like a 600-mile pipeline that spanned multiple states, multiple counties, and just wanted to say that a lot of this wouldn't have been possible without the communities who were, directly impacted, and also, who felt directly engaged, not necessarily were impacted, people who came out in solidarity for this. When you have something that is 600 miles long, but only 150 feet wide, it's hard to sometimes build this kind of community power that you would see sometimes with trying to push back against like a plant or a mine or something like that that has a singular direct impact. And so this really was a huge holistic community effort across multiple states. And just wanted to say, in both of the photos and the videos that we've seen so far, it was a joint effort between Virginia and North Carolina. There was North Carolina folks in those Virginia marches, and there's Virginia folks in these North Carolina marches. And it's really just an incredible thing to see, who all took time out of their lives. Everyone's busy, everybody's got stuff going on, but, really just took time to, stand up for this and say, this isn't right. We don't need this. This, impact is something that we can't handle on a local level, on a state level, on an earth level. And just, the community who stood up, both in these kind of like really powerful videos and stories and articles and marches, and also how that translated directly into engaging with these regulatory agencies, standing up to our state environmental group, our state environmental agencies, federal agencies, and just, it's really just a colossal effort that really happened from the ground up. Next slide. I think, just handing it back to Jess. I think I can't remember how we've got this set up to go over some of the pipeline stuff.
Ridge, thanks for putting that so beautifully. And a large part of this fight too has been how the folks fighting the Atlantic Coast Pipeline have participated in the Mountain Valley Pipeline fight too, and vice versa. Just incredible support and learning from each other, and a true understanding of that we're all neighbors and we're connected in this collective fight for our environmental future, for our climate, for our children. So heading over to Mountain Valley Pipeline, which is still a threat to Virginia communities. The Mountain Valley Pipeline is routed through Appalachia. It's traveling through West Virginia and Virginia, through steep slopes and karst terrain. It's harmful to water resources, specifically the pristine water bodies, many of which are in Virginia and some of which are tier 3. And we saw as soon as pre-construction started, water quality violations started occurring. And that's in both West Virginia and in Virginia. And so we've seen over $2.5 million in fines, 300 violations in Virginia, over 50 in West Virginia, showing that the developers could not safely construct this project. We know it's a water disaster in the present, and it's a climate disaster in the future. If it were operational, it's dangerous. Potent greenhouse gases would be the equivalent of 23 coal-fired power plants in terms of emissions. Next slide. So we know it's a project that's deeply harmful, and here's a timeline of what it's really looked like in terms of the regulatory spaces, the federal agency spaces, to kind of give you an idea of where we are. And yeah, crank the music up. It's got some great synth music. Thank you to our comms team member, Jen. And thank you, Jamie, for helping us tonight. So let's take a little look at this. Great, thanks so much, Jamie. And the next slide, we've got sort of an idea of where are we now with the project. It's actually only half constructed to complete to full restoration. It's not contiguous. You can't go but a mile or two without there being a gap in pipe. And they have so many water crossings that are left. So each part of it has been destructive, but it is much less further along than they would like investors or the public or some elected officials to believe. So we have also seen in the past couple years that some of the equity developers or partners in this are also recognizing the volatility of the project and have started taking impairment charges, as this is really a money pit for them, and have gone as far to say that they feel, specifically NextEra Energy, that the project has a low probability of completion. So you saw it in the very synth-heavy reel that I hope everyone will watch on repeat, that they're missing authorizations from multiple federal agencies right now: U.S. Fish and Wildlife, U.S. Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management, and the Army Corps of Engineers. Next slide. And so really lots of roadblocks ahead of them, and that's why we need your continued help and support in keeping in touch with AppVoices to see what's going on, doing our calls to actions, which you're going to hear about in just a second from Ridge, and understanding where the great work is going on that is being led by the community members leading the fight against Mountain Valley Pipeline, the incredible work being done there, which you'll hear about from our speaker, Russell. So they've got the Clean Water Act as a roadblock, community opposition. It continues to grow nationally. Forest Service authorization, missing. FERC have to renew their certificate because it's about to expire in October, the Endangered Species Act. And we've seen that they originally wanted MVP and claimed it would actually be in service in 2018 at one point. And each year we see them adding on more and more time. So this, thank you again to our comms team and Ben Bowling, who made this fantastic image that you see there. So how much are they over budget? About $3 billion at this point. That's a lot of money for a terrible project that's unnecessary and currently and would continue to harm West Virginians and North Carolinians should they bring it into North Carolina. Next slide. Over to you, Rich.
Yeah, so what can we do today? You know, what we've seen with everything that went involved to stopping the ACP, we're almost there with the MVP. There's a lot of writing on the wall that says they need to get out of this project. any kind of legal or financial advice for them to do so. But what we would like to see is if this project to be stopped. And one of the ways that folks can get involved right now is that we are right in the middle, closing this week, a comment period to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. To Mountain Valley Pipeline is asking them to extend their certificate for 4 more years. When this project was first announced, they didn't say they were going to take four years to build it. They said they only needed 3. This is the second time they're asking for an extension. This is, $3 billion over budget. You can't even go, I think it's like a half mile, right, before the project is incomplete. They got the steepest terrain left before it's done. It's got endangered species that they can't build the pipeline without possibly sending them over the edge to extinction. There's federal forests that they aren't allowed to cross. The list goes on and on and on. And so right now they're asking for 4 years. Normally extensions are only 2 years. They're asking for twice the amount of time, longer than the original budget of the project. And for folks who are wanting to get involved, you can sign on to our petition. We're going to be sending it this week to FERC. All you have to do is just sign your name, and we'll send that on to that agency, and we'll add it directly to the docket for them to see how many folks are in opposition to this project. And if you've got more time, you can submit an individual comment, and we've got links at stopmvp.org for folks to go through a little bit more lengthier process. And we just had a webinar back earlier at the beginning of the month directing folks how to do that. And if anybody has any questions, you can reach out directly to us or to folks at Power. And also you're going to hear a little bit more from Russell here in a bit about getting directly involved on the ground. And some stuff that's needed here in a bit is citizen monitoring. You don't have to have any kind of training or background in this, although if you do, it's helpful. They'll provide the training for you. Just go and let them know where you are and how you can help, and they'll figure out the best way for you to get involved. It's really important work. As we were saying earlier, there's been over 300 water quality violations with Mountain Valley Pipeline's construction so far, and a lot of those were found by individual monitors on the route who went out and documented those violations firsthand and submitted them to the Virginia and West Virginia environmental agencies. We're putting out stuff every day, not every day, but all the time about what's going on with these pipelines and other kind of gas infrastructure projects. But Power is doing the same thing too. So feel free to sign up with them to stay in touch and find out about how else you can get involved. And I think this next thing's handing over to Russell.
That's right. We're excited to go to the next slide and introduce Russell Chisholm, the coordinator with Mountain Valley Watch. Russell, his work and the work of the Power Coalition and Mountain Valley Watch have been all critical partners in the fight against the MVP. So Russell, take it away, and thanks for being here.
Thank you very much, Jess. Thanks, Ridge. First, I want to start off by saying congratulations to Appalachian Voices and all of the members and supporters. And I want to say thank you also to Appalachian Voices, who've been such a strong partner for all of our frontline communities throughout the MVP fight, dating all the way back to 2014. The Mountain Valley Watch project was really born out of a lot of that collaboration, born out of coalition building, and intended to meet a need in our communities, to support directly impacted landowners, to support community members whose groundwater was threatened, and anyone who cares about our streams and rivers and wetlands that the Mountain Valley Pipeline crosses through. Folks that feel empowered to protect those resources for themselves and each other, for recreational use, for future use and to just keep this incredible clean water healthy for species and for people, for habitat and for people. So thank you to everyone for being on here tonight. First of all, you saw in some of the slides during the presentation tonight the many hurdles, particularly in that great graphic, the many hurdles that Mountain Valley Pipeline has ahead of them, should they ever be allowed to complete or to resume construction. Our focus through the Mountain Valley Watch in that sort of worst case scenario that construction would resume will be on that remaining construction, which is on some of the steepest slopes and across water bodies primarily. We know about all of the missing permits. We know that that there are a lot of hoops that they're going to have to jump through even to get those restored. And I feel like there's a very good chance that they may finally be defeated after all of this incredible work that has gone on these many years. If not, however, we will absolutely need help from volunteers to be out looking for environmental violations, particularly in and near streams and rivers and wetlands. So the first call to action that we have for tonight would be to join our volunteer roster. This would be the place where you would be able to connect with future trainings. We do visual inspection trainings. These can all be done virtually. And with our partners, West Virginia Rivers Coalition, we also do in-stream, hands-on water quality stream monitoring trainings that are tailored around pipeline construction. So that's where you would see the different construction methods and know what the risks are from those methods to those water bodies, and then understand the process for getting information should you see a violation, particularly after a weather event, knowing the process for getting that information to people who can then report it on to those agencies and hope that there would be investigation and some enforcement action from that. So that's first, get on that volunteer roster, sign up for Power's newsletter, and watch for those training opportunities. We hope to host a couple more in-stream full-day trainings through the fall into the rest of this year. As 200 miles of Mountain Valley Pipeline crosses through West Virginia, we will hope to focus on that section of the route and reach more volunteers there, as well as additional trainings for that 100-mile section that comes through Virginia. So a couple key things to keep in mind again, with the permit issues that are as of yet unresolved, we're still waiting to see what happens there. But what we do know is that MVP sought and was granted an amendment to their existing certificate to change the crossing method for 183 water bodies at 120 locations from open cut to conventional bore. So this is where there would be massive construction disruption very, very close to water bodies, including bore pits, a lot of heavy equipment, and very high risk due to the increased intensity of climate-induced storms, that there will be disasters at those locations. What we have done through the Mountain Valley Watch project is we have developed a map that will show you all of the remaining crossings as yet to be completed. As Jess mentioned, the first crossing is only within a mile or so of the start of the route up there in northern West Virginia. And on that map, you can then find those streams and rivers and wetlands that are near you that you might want to plug in on volunteer monitoring with. And again, we're talking about over 460 water bodies, 183 wetlands, and the potential for harm to those locations that we all care about is pretty high. I also want to alert you to some incredible resources prepared by our partners at West Virginia Rivers Coalition. They have an app that you can download called the StreamWatch app. you can have this on your phone. You can take this out into the field. It'll walk you through some of the potential violations that you might see. You enter that information directly into your smartphone and you upload it. And the folks at West Virginia Rivers will plug that right into a map. They will look at those reports and they will then send a report on to the West Virginia DEP if they see something that rises to the level of a violation. There are instructions at West Virginia Rivers Coalition's website on how to download and install the app. And this is a piece that we include in the trainings that we'll be doing later this year. So have a good look at that link. Also at the Mountain Valley Watch website, we have videos for volunteer resources that walk you through some of the visual monitoring that you can be doing. So this doesn't necessarily include water sampling or any other equipment other than your phone or your camera. And highly recommend just kind of working through some of the volunteer resources there and get an understanding of what we would be asking for from volunteers. And I think that is everything that I wanted to cover from folks for tonight. So I'll turn it back over to you, Jess.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Russell. And really excited about the ways folks can help directly with those efforts supporting y'all in West Virginia Rivers Coalition. So we'll be sending these resources out to everybody that registered also. So if you don't catch it in the chat, don't worry. But the volunteer link is there and the stream app from West Virginia Rivers Coalition. Next slide. I'm going to hand it back over to Rich to talk a little bit about what's happening with MVP Southgate before we hear about the work being done in Tennessee. Rich?
All right, y'all. So we saw the route of the Mountain Valley Pipeline coming from West Virginia in through Virginia, stopping in Southside Virginia in Pennsylvania County, north of the Dan River. They right around the time that they proposed the original main line, Mountain Valley Pipeline turned around and said, hey, we want to keep it going into North Carolina with this Southgate extension, even though they weren't anywhere close to being done with the main line. They obviously had thought about the projects at the same time. Should have been all one big project, if you ask me, but who knows how that all works. So just want to say that the Southgate route, much smaller pipeline, both in length and in diameter, but still just as unneeded and just as dangerous. Running through Virginia and into North Carolina, like I said. Just wanted to talk about some of the big efforts that went along with that in North Carolina, which is one of the photos that you see here at one of the water quality permit hearings in North Carolina in Rockingham County. The amount of kind of like, community engagement and direct engagement with regulatory agencies led to the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality denying the water quality permit for MVP Southgate. And in their denial, they questioned the need of the pipeline and said that until there's any kind of movement on the Mountain Valley Pipeline mainline, that they should just wait, that they weren't going to approve anything anytime soon, which was unprecedented at the time for North Carolina DEQ to turn down a water quality permit that kind of checked all of the boxes, but just based off of a project that wasn't needed. Next slide. And similarly, another historic thing that happened in Virginia on the compressor station that was the sole compressor station for the Southgate route. Landowners, concerned citizens, environmental groups came together and using legislation that AppVoices helped push forward with the Environmental Justice Act in Virginia to deny the air permit for the Lambert compressor station based off of its impacts to nearby environmental justice communities. Another historic victory on the regulatory side of things, and just really awesome amount of community engagement and organizing that happened along that whole route with impacted landowners, like the ones you see up here up front in this photo. And you know, just could have a whole entire other presentation about all the things that have been going on with all of these projects. But really, the bottom line is just it couldn't have been done without the communities involved in all of these projects. And just thanks for being here with us, and thanks for allowing us to work with you, and just, you know, endless appreciation. And thanks for being here this evening. I just want to I think there's a lot more to cover, but I just wanted to hand it over to Angie Mumo, the Middle Tennessee organizer, who's new to us, but not new to what's going on over there. And just take it away. Next slide.
Thanks, Ridge. Yeah, I'm Angie. I'm the Middle Tennessee organizer. Here in Tennessee, all of our electricity is generated by TVA, or Tennessee Valley Authority. And they have been planning a massive gas build out that is the second largest build out in the US, second only to Duke, with just under 5,000 megawatts. They're proposing 157 miles of fracked gas, methane gas pipelines. And this is for 2 plant closures, one in Kingston, Tennessee, and one in Cumberland City, Tennessee. Which the one in Cumberland, Tennessee, I'm working more closely with that one. That is very close to where I live. But anyhow, this pipeline, the gas build out that they are preferring as an option when they shut down these coal burning plants, they want to replace them with combined combustion gas burning plants, so trading one fossil fuel for another. And this pipeline would cross 14 different counties in Tennessee, a beautiful Tennessee countryside, and also come very near Cummins Falls State Park, which is pictured there on the bottom right. On a hot day, it may see up to 200 visitors, and it's very close to this proposed pipeline route. Next slide, please. This is showing the Kingston, the proposed Kingston pipeline, and it would span 11 counties, and this would result in a lot of property loss and property damage. Landowners, you know, if this does go through, landowners will be forced to sell easements or have land taken by eminent domain, and so that results in a lot of loss, property loss to landowners, but also habitat destruction, and loss of habitat for wildlife and plants. And you can see in the Tennessee map, the bottom left, there's a map of Tennessee that shows you that this Kingston pipeline would really span through a good part of Tennessee. Okay, next slide. I have the Cumberland pipeline. So this is the one near my home that I'm focusing on for Appalachian Voices. And it would span 3 counties. Starting in the top left, it would be running southeast, going from at the top a little bit in Stewart County, through the northeast portion of Houston County, and then all the way through the middle of Dixon County. And you can see the map of Tennessee in the bottom left. much smaller pipeline, 32 miles. This pipeline would be 32 miles. But just in that 32 miles, it would cross over 130 wetlands and streams. Okay, next slide. And so besides all of that property loss and damage, habitat loss, all of the environmental destruction that would be caused by construction of a pipeline, there are a lot of other reasons why we don't want a pipeline. A lot of things that Jess and Ridge have talked about, and Russell, they can be damaging to our public health. So these pipelines, they're eventually going to leak. There are two types of pipelines, those that leak and those that will leak. And so eventually they're going to end up contaminating our air and water, producing methane emissions, a very bad greenhouse gas. And also explosions are a real danger. Like I said, they either leak or they will leak. And maybe an accidental bottle rocket or a lightning strike, things we can't control, can cause these pipelines that are leaking to explode and become a real danger. Also, another reason that we don't want natural gas pipelines is because of the price of natural gas. So because natural gas, the prices are volatile right now, TVA has already increased our rates once this year. So it's likely that, relying on gas would mean more price increases. And then also, economically speaking, the jobs that would be created by gas pipeline, if TVA makes that decision, there would only be 25 to 30 permanent jobs created. And that's down from the Cumberland plant, specifically, not Kingston, but the Cumberland project. It would create about 25 to 30 jobs, where right now that plant employs over 250 full-time employees. So yes, this is why the Appalachian Voices, we commissioned a job analysis. Next slide, please. And in that job analysis, we did what TVA failed to do, which was look at a clean energy portfolio. So this is a mix of renewable energies, energy efficiency, things like solar, wind, battery storage, and energy efficiency, meaning that the energy efficiency would be like installing better insulation, maybe new windows, energy efficient appliances, that kind of thing, focusing on that. That's something that TVA used to support, that they no longer do, support programs that help low income, help people to make their homes more energy efficient. But what this graph is showing is that for options A and B, which are in the orange color, these are gas options. TVA's preferred option is option A, that gas build out that I was telling you about. Option C was their solar option. So they did include that. They did not talk about the number of jobs that it would create. And so this is showing just how many more jobs that these clean energy options would end up creating. And if you'll go to the next slide, this shows, just as kind of an overview, if TVA were to make a moderate investment into energy efficiency, it would look something like this. With the clean energy that they invest in, it would create about 5,000 full-time jobs, and those are direct jobs. which direct jobs means that they're related specifically to energy efficient manufacturing, installation and maintenance. Whereas indirect and induced jobs, you can see on the right, it would create about 10,000 indirect or induced jobs, which are related industries or local economy jobs that happen because of this investment in clean energy and savings. So this is what would be the result of TVA investing just reducing electricity, so investing in energy efficiency to reduce the need of electricity by just 3% a year each year until 2035. So it would end up saving over 300,000 megawatts, so enough to power over 250,000 homes for a year. So, okay, next slide, please. Bottom line is the energy is clean energy creates more jobs than gas. Okay, so the EPA also agrees with that. A lot of the things that we've been talking about. When TVA issued their draft environmental impact statement, the EPA released a 19-page comment about some of the things we've talked about. That the main overall was that they strongly recommend TVA either modify or choose another option. They noticed that TVA failed to analyze affordable, available, renewable energy and energy efficiency options. Also, that proposed gas plant would emit dangerous greenhouse gases, those methane gases, which are 10 times worse than carbon dioxide. Methane is as a greenhouse gas. It would emit these greenhouse gases for decades to come. Also, the EPA recognizes that this gas plan would lock TVA's more than 10 million customers into paying for these gas prices. So it will result in increasing monthly power bills across the Tennessee Valley. But also, if TVA went with the clean energy instead of choosing a gas build out, this comes from a recent independent study, and I think Jess put in the chat the link to where this information comes from. EPA's comment. There was a recent independent study that said that TVA could save more than $9 billion over 20 years just by going with clean energy. So that's savings that could be passed on to their customers in the form of lower energy bills. Okay, so next slide. So if you agree with Appalachian Voices and the EPA, you can go to our website, notvapipelines.com, and take action. This is a shared website, so not just for Appalachian Voices, but some of our other partners like Sierra Club and Southern Environmental Law Center. This website has a lot of great resources that you can find, and then also you can add your name to the petition and let our decision makers know that we want a clean energy future. So back to you, Jess.
Angie, thanks so much. And thanks for sharing all of this really important, timely, some alarming information coming out of proposed projects for Tennessee and all the different ways folks can take action. We've heard tonight about how important it is to connect community to community, to understand sort of the big picture of all of these fights, and then the more localized ways we can support each other. We saw the story of the victory against the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. We see the continued resistance to the Mountain Valley Pipeline, and we learned tonight about new threats to our friends and neighbors in Tennessee. So there's lots of ways to take action. We will follow up with you with all the great things that have been in the chat. But tonight we ask you, sign our petition to FERC about Mountain Valley Pipeline. Consider becoming a volunteer with Mountain Valley Watch. Visit Power's website and sign up for their newsletter, which is a fantastic way to keep plugged in with all of the things going on. I'm seeing in the chat. Thank you folks for signing these. And then check out the Stream app from West Virginia Rivers Coalition. And finally, go to notavapipelines.com and consider taking action there. Submit a comment to FERC. Stay in touch with all of us. We'd love to work with you. We're so appreciative to get to do this work with you. It is truly a blessing. And I'm going to put our contact info in the chat. But here in Virginia, we'd love to talk to you. North Carolina, Tennessee, we really want to keep these partnerships going and growing. I want to thank Jamie Goodman for helping us this evening with on the technical side, and to the communication staff at Appalachian Voices. They are a critical part of helping tell these stories and staying in touch with y'all. So thank you again. Thank you for supporting Appalachian Voices for up to 25 years. What an exciting development. And thanks for being here tonight. Again, we'll have some follow-up resources for you to help you submit comments. We'll have the video from this evening, and a round of applause for y'all. Thanks for being here, and take care.